Breaking news into SportsCenter and big news from the coaches carousel. The latest, the Giants are finalizing a deal to make Patriots special teams coordinator and wide receivers coach Joe Judge their next head coach. Judge, who just turned 38 last week, has been an assistant for Bill Belichick for 8 years. Also spent time on Nick Saban's staff at Alabama. Adam Schefter reporting that Judge wowed the Giants in the interview process and their coaching search stopped right there. Take a look at the NFC East and what's gone on. Doug Peterson's been there for a few years. Ron Rivera was just hired by the Redskins last Wednesday. Mike McCarthy hired by the Cowboys yesterday. And today, Joe Judge takes over in the Meadowlands.
David, what is it at Baylor? Now he will be expected to do the same with the Panthers.
Happy 23rd birthday to Lamar Jackson, the league's likely MVP, spearheading the league's #1 rushing team against the league's leading rusher, Derrick Henry and the Titans, Saturday night in Baltimore. Tennessee just knocked off the Patriots in Foxborough in the wild card round. Here's John Harbaugh on the matchup.
They're locked in, they're focused, they're excited, they understand this is it, this is what you work for. And it is a new season, and they're very, there's an intensity, you know. I think there's an intensity all the time. But the other part of it is you want to have your best practice every single time out. We always talk about our best Wednesday, our best Thursday, our best Friday. Better than anybody else in football, better than anybody in the history of football. And we're chasing that, all those things every single week. I think, you know, you have to do that to be able to perform at a high level, to give yourself a chance. And that is the thing that it stays the same. You know, you try to carry that over into the playoffs.
Got Ryan Clark back to break this one down. We got the 6 seed taking on the 1 seed, which is rested and at home. Two very tough teams in the Ravens and the Titans. How do you see what's this going to come down to?
See, I don't see it as the #1 seed and the 6th seed. I see it as the #1 overall rusher in this league against the #1 overall rushing defense. And that's what this game is going to come down to. Who can impose their will physically on the other team? Listen, we saw what Derrick Henry was able to do in New England last week and what he did against the Houston Texans. And we've seen this Baltimore offense all year, led by Lamar Jackson. So which team can stop the other from running the football and force Ryan Tannehill to win with the pass or Lamar Jackson to win with the pass? What we do know, Dave, is this is going to be the fastest game in NFL history. There's going to be like 4 possessions, no passes thrown, and whichever team can be the most physical will win. Obviously, there's some jokes about that part of it, but I still believe it starts and ends with who runs the football the best.
Okay, impose your will. Baltimore favored by 9 in this game going up Saturday night. For the other AFC divisional matchup, let's go back to Carrie.
All right, RC hanging out with me. Let's talk about that. October 13th, 2019. Oh, to me, I think that most people will look at this and say, and remember, Patrick Mahomes was healthy week 6, right? Mm-hmm. And so everyone is fairly healthy now as we're in the postseason. What will be the biggest difference this time around when you look at this matchup?
It's about the Kansas City Chiefs defense, Carrie, and what they've been able to do down the stretch run of this season. Tyrann Mathieu coming along and being an all-pro player that they got him in the offseason for. Also, the opportunity to have Terrell Suggs with that NFL pedigree. The Kansas City Chiefs defense needed to make one stop against the Houston Texans early on in this year to get the ball back, and they couldn't. They just couldn't come up with the play. Now with Tyrann Mathieu making plays like this, with the front 4 being able to rush the passer, they have an opportunity to turn the ball over from the Houston Texans and give Patrick Mahomes more possessions. If this defense plays the way it played down the stretch, they won't only win this game, they'll have an opportunity to represent the AFC in the Super Bowl. And so it's very important that they come out and play the way they have for Spags down toward the end of this season.
Okay. Joe Judge spent Monday with Giants officials, and I was told that it was a very impressive interview. So impressive that the two sides began negotiations Monday night, which sent a signal to Matt Rule, the Panthers head coach, that obviously he might not have an opening in New York. The Giants obviously were willing or given the chance to match that offer, but they were down the road with Joe Judge, the Patriots special teams coordinator and wide receivers coach, and decided to stick with him. They were finalizing that deal this morning. Joe Judge is going to be the next head coach of the New York Giants, and they just felt incredibly impressed with him. I think the upset here is that Josh McDaniels, who was supposed to interview in New York with the Giants on Wednesday, didn't even get in the door, that the Giants saw enough from Joe Judge and felt comfortable enough with Joe Judge that they just moved ahead and hired him as their next head coach, never having spoken to Matt Rule or Josh McDaniels, with Matt Rule going to Carolina and Josh McDaniels now slated to interview in Cleveland on Friday with the Browns about their head coaching vacancy, with them being the last team here that has an opening.
So a bit of a surprise in the Meadowlands. Judge joining the Giants after 8 seasons with the Patriots. 2019, his first as both the special teams coordinator and wide receivers coach. Kind of a similar background to John Harbaugh before he got the head job in Baltimore. Prior to his run in New England, Judge spent 3 seasons as a football analyst at Alabama under Nick Saban.
All right, so as a result, speaking of, Matt Rule is now the new head coach of the Carolina Panthers. According to reports, the former Baylor head coach accepted the position today. Adam Schefter saying he got the signal. Rule was expected to interview with the Giants, but he's also now being credited, and everyone should know this, turning around programs, struggling programs on the collegiate level, first at Temple, then at Baylor. He's expected to do the same with the Panthers. No need to worry, though, for the Panthers if the first year is not great. So let me explain it. He won a combined 3-21 in his first seasons with Temple for the Packers defense against Russell Wilson.
Listen, it's about keeping Russell Wilson in the pocket and putting pressure on him. And Zadarius Smith and Preston Smith, who were both free agents brought over to Green Bay in the offseason, have done that all year, and they're going to have to do it again. If you are going to beat the Seattle Seahawks, it's about keeping Russell Wilson from making second opportunity plays, getting outside the pocket and finding DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett down the field. And no duo has done that as good as these two dudes in Green Bay. The Smith brothers have been all over quarterbacks all season, and they're going to need them in Lambeau to be huge if you expect to stop Russell Wilson and the Seattle Seahawks.
All right, let's move to the other. And meanwhile, let's add that again. 8-1 on the road for the Seahawks heading into Green Bay. Saturday early game, Vikings-Niners. What is the biggest unknown in that matchup?
The quarterbacks. I mean, listen, are we now believing in Kirk Cousins because he made those 2 late throws? Do we think that carries over when you have Armstead and Bosa and all of those guys chasing you? And Jimmy G, we've never seen him in this position. He hasn't been the starting quarterback of a playoff team. Will he show up? Will he make the big plays that are needed? We know about these teams' run games. We know how great both defenses are in the front 7. They're going to put pressure on these 2 quarterbacks who are still really unproven in this situation. The quarterback of these 2 that can come up with the bigger plays in the clutch moments will give his team the opportunity to win. I just don't know which one it'll be.
Right. RC with the education, you're right. It is the quarter. Finalizing a deal to make Patriots special teams coordinator and wide receivers coach Joe Judge their next head coach. Judge, who just turned 38 last week, has been an assistant for 8 years under Bill Belichick. Also spent some time on Nick Saban's staff at Alabama. So there's more. Judge also worked, again, as explaining, with the wide receivers for the Patriots this season. And as he's finalizing this deal, we all know that the big thing will be how he will be able to work with Saquon Barkley and Daniel Jones. So, for more on who might be an offensive coordinator for the Giants now that they've made a head coaching hire, here's our Adam Schefter.
I'm told that the Giants submitted this request on Sunday, that they were thinking of him as their offensive coordinator. They love Jason Garrett, much like Jerry Jones loved Jason Garrett, but the Giants had other head coaching candidates that they preferred, that they were always going to hire one of those. I don't believe, from all the conversations I've had around the league, that Jason Garrett ever was in play for the Giants head coaching job, but they were thinking of him as a potential member of the staff because he's worked for the organization before. He knows the Mara family. They have high regard for him. They know what he could bring for a young quarterback in Daniel Jones, and Joe Judge is going to need strong coordinators to help run the Giants offense and defense. And so Jason Garrett now becomes a candidate for the Giants offensive coordinator job, which I think is the job that they always were thinking of him in. He's not going to get a head coaching job in this particular cycle, maybe one day again, but right now the Giants are thinking of him as a potential coordinator.
Before the Judge hire earlier this morning, Matt Rule, who's developed a reputation as a turnaround artist both at Temple and Baylor, has agreed to be the next head coach of the Carolina Panthers. Adam reporting 7 years, $70 million. Rule was scheduled to interview with, has made the postseason multiple times. As we make the transition from college to the pros, we've got our college football analyst Greg McElroy here to talk a little bit about Matt Rule. And listen, there's a lot of guys who have good one-loss records. What is it that makes Matt Rule stand out to you?
He does a remarkable job meeting the players where they're at. And the turnaround's obvious, but what he was able to do with limited skill set, limited talent at Baylor was truly remarkable. And his ability to hold players accountable without being demeaning really translates to the modern athlete. And I think guys respond to him. They feel gravitated towards him. And if you think about it, with the roster he inherited and the issues that he inherited at Baylor left by the previous regime, it's amazing to think that just a couple years ago, 11 losses to this year, 11 wins. Truly remarkable, plus the 2 10-win seasons at Temple. He's universally respected at the college level, and I think all of us are really interested to see what he's going to do in the NFL.
Okay, and of course, a lot of the equation there in Charlotte is with Cam Newton, who has not been healthy the last couple years. If he is able to play to his full capacity, how do you see it going between Matt Rule and Cam Newton?
Well, I think we're all interested to see how the shoulder and the foot does naturally as fans of Cam Newton and as a guy that has a remarkable skill set. But if you think when he was at his best, an MVP season just a few years ago, it was running pseudo college offense, things that were simplified. RPO aspects within the offense, more of a college mindset. And if you look at NFL offenses, they've slowly started to adjust to more of what's going on the college level. Kansas City does it best, and Pat Mahomes is obviously very comfortable doing that. But if you look at what Matt Rule has done over the course of his career, both at the Giants as the offensive line coach and at Baylor and at Temple before that, he's going to use some of those offensive concepts that they use at the college level, translated to what is going to make Cam Newton comfortable, and hopefully he can reach the heights that he did in 2015.
Okay, we'll see how